Fear has been with humanity since the very first breath. It is woven into the fabric of survival, shaping our instincts, protecting us from danger, guiding us to avoid harm. Yet, what was once a companion to keep us alive has now become a silent tyrant within us. It dictates not only how we act, but also how we love, how we dream, how we open ourselves to life. Fear is no longer merely about survival. It has seeped into the very core of our being, coloring the way we see existence itself. To speak of freedom from fear is not to speak of a small matter. It is to speak of the very heart of spirituality, the very essence of awakening. Because fear is not simply an emotion, it is a prison. It binds the wings of the soul and makes us crawl when we were born to fly. To be free of fear is to rediscover the natural state of the human spirit: openness, trust, joy, and love. What is fear? On the surface, it seems simple: fear of death, fear of loss, fear of pain. But if we look deeper, we discover that fear is almost always a projection of the mind into the future. Fear says, "What if? What if I lose what I love? What if I fail? What if I am rejected? What if tomorrow brings suffering?" This is the first key to understanding fear. It never exists in the present. In the very moment of now, fear cannot survive. Right here, in this breath, nothing is threatening you. Right here, in this moment, you are alive, breathing, existing. But the mind is rarely content with the present. It runs ahead, it imagines, it invents. Fear is the shadow of that imagination. Even when you fear death, it is not death itself that you are experiencing. No one has ever truly experienced their own death in life. What you experience is the thought of death, the imagination of it, the anticipation of something that has not yet happened. This anticipation creates trembling, panic, anxiety. The event itself is not here, but the fear is. In this way, fear is like a ghost born of thought, unreal and yet powerful. Fear is nourished by our search for security. The human being longs for certainty, for something unshakable to hold on to. We want guarantees, guarantees that love will last forever, that wealth will remain, that health will endure, that tomorrow will unfold according to our plans. Life, however, offers no such promises. Existence is fluid, forever in flux, like a river that never pauses. To cling to permanence in a world of impermanence is to invite fear at every turn. When we demand that life obey our need for security, we live in constant tension. We may acquire wealth, but we fear losing it. We may fall in love, but we fear the fragility of that bond. We may achieve success, but we tremble at the thought of failure. What we call security is only a temporary arrangement, and deep inside we know it. That is why, even in the midst of comfort, fear does not leave us. True freedom from fear comes not by making life secure, but by seeing through the very illusion of security. When we recognize that nothing can be held forever, that everything comes and goes, rises and falls, appears and disappears, then we begin to loosen our grip. In that loosening, there is a strange relaxation. We begin to flow with existence instead of fighting it. And in that flow, fear starts to dissolve. One of the most powerful insights is that fear cannot survive in the presence of awareness. Fear grows in the dark corners of unconsciousness. We often try to escape it, suppress it, or distract ourselves from it. But suppression only strengthens fear. Escape only gives it more power. The moment we turn toward it with awareness, something miraculous happens. To be aware of fear means to watch it without judgment, without trying to push it away, without labeling it as good or bad. Simply to observe, here is fear. It is in my body. It is in my breath. It is in my mind. When you watch fear with such clarity, without resistance, it begins to lose its grip. You are no longer entangled in it. You become the witness, and fear becomes just an energy passing through. Awareness acts like light in a dark room. When light enters, darkness cannot remain. It vanishes instantly. In the same way, when awareness shines upon fear, fear begins to evaporate. It may return again because the mind is habitual, but each time you bring awareness, its power diminishes. Slowly, you begin to see that you are not the fear. You are the space in which fear appears and disappears. And that space, your true nature, has never known fear. At its core, fear is always about the future. Even when we say we fear something from the past, what we really fear is its return in the future. The past itself is gone. It cannot hurt us anymore. But we project it forward. What if it happens again? Fear is always rooted in tomorrow, never in today. This is why the present moment is such a profound doorway to freedom. When you are fully present, fear cannot exist. If you are simply watching the dance of trees in the wind, the sound of birds, the rhythm of your own breath, where is fear? Fear only enters when thought interrupts, when the mind drags you out of now and into the uncertain landscape of what may be. Thus, the practice of presence, of mindfulness, of being here and now is not a technique for relaxation only. It is the very key to dissolving fear. When you live moment to moment, deeply rooted in the real, fear has no soil in which to grow. Among all fears, the fear of death is the greatest. It is the root from which many smaller fears branch out. Fear of loss, fear of change, fear of failure, all are ultimately reflections of the fear that one day all will end. But what is death? It is a mystery. We know birth, we know life, but death remains unknown. And what is unknown becomes frightening to the mind. The mind wants to categorize, to define, to control, and death resists all of that. Death is the great silence, the vast unknown, and so the mind trembles before it. Yet, if we look closely, death is not against life, it is part of life. Just as night is part of the day, just as winter is part of the cycle of seasons, death is part of existence. Without death, life would not be possible. Each breath ends so that another can begin. Each moment dies so that a new moment can be born. Death is woven into the fabric of living. When we see this, when we meditate on it deeply, the fear of death begins to soften. Death is not the enemy, it is the great teacher. It reminds us to live fully, to love deeply, to cherish each moment. In fact, only by accepting death can we truly celebrate life. Otherwise, life remains a struggle to avoid the inevitable. Where fear exists, love cannot bloom fully. Fear contracts the heart, builds walls, isolates. Love expands, opens, connects. Fear makes us defensive. Love makes us vulnerable. And yet, vulnerability is where true intimacy and joy arise. Many people avoid love out of fear. Fear of rejection, fear of betrayal, fear of loss. But in avoiding love, they also avoid life. Love always carries risk, because love is a leap into the unknown. But that leap is also the essence of freedom. To love despite fear is to declare that life is greater than security, greater than certainty. When fear disappears, love comes naturally. It is not something we need to force. Love is our natural fragrance, just as the fragrance of a flower is natural. But fear is like a stone placed upon the flower. Remove the stone, and the fragrance spreads. Remove fear, and love radiates. At the deepest level, freedom from fear comes through trust. Trust not in some doctrine or belief, but trust in life itself. Trust that existence is not against you. Trust that whatever comes, you have the strength to meet it. Trust that even in uncertainty, there is a hidden order, a deeper wisdom at work. This trust is not naive. It does not mean that suffering will never happen. It means that suffering, too, is part of the vast tapestry of existence, and that even in pain there is growth, there is depth, there is transformation. Trust allows you to relax into the mystery, and in that relaxation, fear loses its ground. To live without fear does not mean that fear will never arise again. It means that when it arises, you will not be ruled by it. You will see it, you will acknowledge it, but you will not bow to it. Fear may knock on your door, but it will no longer enter and take possession of your house. Living without fear means living in presence, in awareness, in love, in trust. It means embracing the uncertainty of life, not as a threat, but as the very spice that makes life worth living. It means walking through life with open hands, not clinging, not grasping, but allowing everything to come and go in its natural rhythm. Such a life is a celebration. Without fear, each moment becomes luminous. Each experience becomes a gift. Even difficulties become opportunities, because nothing can shake the foundation of your freedom. Fear wears many disguises. Sometimes it is obvious, like the trembling before danger, the panic before speaking in public, the anxiety before losing someone you love. But more often, it is subtle, hiding beneath respectable names. Fear often masquerades as ambition. We chase success not always because of joy, but because of the fear of being a failure. We accumulate wealth not purely out of abundance, but because of the fear of poverty. We seek power not out of true creativity, but because of the fear of being insignificant. Many of the world's greatest achievements are born not from love, but from fear. This is why, even after success, people remain restless. The fear never leaves. It simply shifts shape. Now there is the fear of losing success, the fear of being surpassed, the fear of decline. Unless fear itself is dissolved, it continues to direct life from the shadows. Sometimes fear appears as morality. People follow traditions and rules not out of love or understanding, but out of fear of punishment or exclusion. A person may stay in a relationship not because of love, but because of the fear of loneliness. One may remain in a job not because it is fulfilling, but because of the fear of uncertainty. Fear is subtle. It wears the mask of reason, of duty, of virtue. To recognize its disguises requires deep honesty with oneself. How then to dissolve fear? The path is simple, though not always easy. Sit with it. Do not run away. Do not distract yourself. Do not drown it in noise, in work, in entertainment, in substances. Sit quietly, close your eyes, and allow fear to be present. Feel its sensations in your body, the tightness in your chest, the quickness of your breath, the trembling of your hands. Feel it without labeling it. Do not call it bad, do not call it weakness. Just be with it. At first, it may seem overwhelming, as though the fear will swallow you. But if you persist with patience, something changes. You begin to see that fear is just energy. It rises, it peaks, it falls. It is not permanent, not solid, not who you are. You are the witness of it, not the prisoner. The more you sit with fear, the more familiar you become with its dance. And slowly, the mystery is revealed. Fear itself is afraid. Fear exists only because you resist it. The moment you stop resisting, it begins to dissolve on its own. Like a fire that dies when there is no fuel, fear dies when there is no resistance. One of the greatest sources of fear is our relationship with the unknown. The human mind craves certainty. It wants to know what will happen tomorrow, how things will turn out, whether life will favor us. But life remains unpredictable. No matter how much we plan, no matter how carefully we arrange our lives, uncertainty always slips through the cracks. This is where fear is born, in the gap between our desire for certainty and the reality of uncertainty. What if, instead of resisting the unknown, we embraced it? What if we saw uncertainty not as a threat, but as the very essence of life's beauty? Imagine reading a novel when you already know the ending. Would you enjoy it? Imagine watching a movie after someone has spoiled the plot. Would you feel the same thrill? It is the not knowing that makes life alive. It is the mystery that makes existence sacred. When you accept that you cannot know, cannot control, cannot predict, a new kind of freedom arises. You begin to live not with fear, but with wonder. Each day becomes an adventure, each moment a surprise. Instead of clinging to security, you dance with insecurity. Instead of fearing the unknown, you celebrate it. This shift in perspective is perhaps the greatest step toward freedom from fear. Consider a child standing at the edge of the ocean for the first time. The waves roar, the vastness seems endless, and fear arises. The child clings to the shore, afraid to enter. But slowly, step by step, perhaps holding the hand of a parent, the child enters the water. The fear is still there, but mingled with excitement. Soon, the child is laughing, splashing, playing. The same ocean that first provoked fear now becomes a source of joy. Life is like this ocean. At first, its vastness overwhelms us. We cling to the familiar shore of security. But if we take small steps into the unknown, we discover that what seemed terrifying is also filled with beauty. The unknown is not against us. It is the playground of existence. Imagine a bird in a cage. For years, the bird has lived behind bars. The cage feels safe. The bird is fed, protected from predators, shielded from storms. But the cage is also a prison. One day, the door is left open. The bird trembles with fear. To fly out is to risk the vast sky, the dangers of the open world. The cage feels safer. But the cage is not life. Only when the bird gathers the courage to leap into the unknown sky does it taste freedom. We too are like this bird. Fear keeps us clinging to our cages, the cage of comfort, the cage of routine, the cage of beliefs. But life is waiting in the open sky. Freedom is waiting. Love is waiting. Joy is waiting. To remain in the cage is safe, but safety without freedom is not worth much. Let us return to the greatest fear, death. Death is the final unknown, the door we all must walk through. Most of us spend our lives avoiding it, pretending it is far away, refusing to speak of it. And yet, the awareness of death can be the greatest gift. When you accept death, life gains depth. Suddenly, every moment becomes precious. You no longer postpone joy. You no longer waste time on trivialities. You live with intensity, with passion, with presence. Death teaches us urgency, not the urgency of panic, but the urgency of love. Think of a flower that blooms in the morning and withers by evening. Its beauty is magnified by its impermanence. If the flower were eternal, we might pass it by without noticing. But knowing it will fade, we pause, we admire, we breathe its fragrance deeply. In the same way, the awareness that life is fleeting fills it with beauty. Without death, life would lose its taste. To embrace death is to embrace life fully. When fear of death disappears, all other fears lose their foundation. What can the world take from you if you have already accepted the ultimate loss? In such acceptance, there is tremendous freedom. It would be a mistake to think of fear only as an enemy. Fear, too, has its role. It shows us where we are clinging. It reveals where we are not trusting life. It points to the boundaries of our awareness. In this sense, fear is a teacher. By following fear to its root, we discover the places within ourselves that need light, love, and understanding. For example, if you fear rejection, it may reveal that you have not yet fully accepted yourself. If you fear change, it may reveal that you have not yet seen the impermanence of all things. If you fear loneliness, it may reveal that you have not yet discovered the richness of your own inner being. Each fear is an invitation. Look here, understand this, awaken in this place. Freedom from fear does not mean becoming fearless in the ordinary sense. It does not mean recklessness or the absence of caution. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to move despite fear. True courage comes not from suppressing fear, but from understanding it. When you understand fear, you can act with clarity. You can love despite the risk of loss. You can create despite the possibility of failure. You can speak your truth despite the chance of rejection. This is real courage, to live authentically, without allowing fear to dictate your choices. Such courage transforms life. Instead of a narrow, fearful existence, life becomes vast and open. Instead of surviving, you begin to truly live. When fear disappears, a new fragrance arises in life: celebration. Existence is no longer a burden, no longer a series of problems to be solved. It becomes a dance. You begin to notice the small joys, the laughter of a child, the colors of the sunset, the song of the wind. Gratitude arises naturally. Without fear, love deepens, creativity blossoms, joy overflows. You are no longer hiding, no longer protecting, no longer defending. You are simply being, open, present, alive. This is freedom. Not the freedom promised by politics or possessions, but the inner freedom that no one can take away. And this freedom is available to you now, in this very moment. It does not require years of struggle. It requires only awareness, to see fear, to understand it, to stop running from it. In that seeing, the prison door opens, and beyond that door lies a life of vastness, mystery, and celebration. Freedom from fear is not a distant dream. It is the birthright of every being. To claim it is to step into the fullness of life, a life where death is no longer an enemy, where the unknown is a friend, where love flows without obstruction, and where existence is embraced in all its mystery and wonder.